All right, let's get right into it. The year is 2026, and you have to imagine the world as this giant, messy chessboard of interconnected crises. Seriously, tensions are just simmering everywhere from Eastern Europe all the way to the Caribbean. And the global order that we all kind of took for granted, well, it's fracturing in real time. It's an incredibly volatile landscape where one wrong move, it could trigger a massive chain reaction across continents. And then, this happens. During his State of the Union address, President Donald Trump drops an absolute bombshell of an announcement. 80 million barrels of oil from Venezuela, a country under crippling U.S. sanctions, mind you. I mean, the claim is audacious, it's provocative, and it really just begs one simple question. How? How is that even possible? Well, the answer is just as shocking as the announcement itself. Turns out, just 1 month before that speech, U.S. Special Forces carried out a pretty bloody raid in Caracas, the Venezuelan capital, and they abducted President Nicolas Maduro. All of a sudden, that partnership Trump was talking about, yeah, it starts to look a lot more like a hostile takeover.
So this is the big question, right? This is the crucial point. How did we even get here? How does a raid in Caracas have anything to do with the brutal 4-year-long war in Ukraine? And how does that link to a tense naval standoff halfway across the globe? Well, in this explainer, we're going to connect those dots for you.
It all really starts here. We're at the grim 4th anniversary of the Russia-Ukraine war. What so many thought would be a quick blitz has just devolved into this grinding, protracted war of attrition. And that conflict, it has fundamentally rewired, well, everything. Global politics, security, and especially economics. And if you want to see the brutal economic reality of this war, just look at these numbers. While Russia's economy, believe it or not, has managed to adapt and even grow, Ukraine's has been absolutely devastated, a contraction of over 21%. And that isn't just a number on a screen. That represents a catastrophic loss of livelihoods and a future that's now completely dependent on foreign aid. And the human cost, it is just staggering. Some estimates suggest that up to 325,000 Russian military personnel have been killed. For Ukraine, that number could be as high as 140,000. These aren't just statistics. They represent one of the deadliest conflicts in Europe since the Second World War. The scale of the physical destruction is almost impossible to wrap your head around. The World Bank thinks it's going to cost over $500 billion just to rebuild Ukraine. So to put that into perspective for you, that's nearly 4 times the country's entire economy before the war even started. It's an incredible figure that just shows you the immense challenge of recovery. Now, all this economic pressure from the war, it sent massive shockwaves across the globe, especially in the energy markets. As Western countries sanctioned Russian oil, Moscow had to find new customers, and boy, did they find them in Asia. Look at this. India, for example, went from importing almost zero Russian oil to it making up nearly 40% of its total imports. This wasn't just a business deal. This was a fundamental redrawing of the global energy map. And this new energy map, it created this intense competition, this global scramble. And that desperation for energy, that is the key. It's the thread that connects a war in Europe directly to these high-stakes showdowns happening thousands of miles away. Just look at how fast this all went down. On January 3rd, the raid on Maduro happens. Almost immediately, you see this panicked exodus of oil tankers fleeing the Venezuelan coast. One of these ships, the Bertha, makes a desperate run for it, all the way across the Atlantic to the Indian Ocean. But a month later, it's intercepted by the U.S. military. This wasn't some routine seizure. This was a high-stakes game of cat and mouse playing out on the open seas. And this one tanker, the Bertha, it basically tells the whole story. It was carrying almost 2 million barrels of Venezuelan crude. But here's the kicker. It was already under U.S. sanctions because of its links to another oil-rich adversary, Iran. So this one ship, this single vessel, directly connects the flashpoints in Venezuela and the Middle East, all of it driven by that global scramble for energy. Okay, so let's zoom out. What does all this mean for the world? Because these crises, they didn't just happen in a vacuum. They are all symptoms of a much bigger shift, the emergence of a new, way more fractured, and way more confrontational global order. You can really see this new global map taking shape in 3 major ways. First, you've got a re-energized NATO, which is now massively ramping up defense spending. That's a clear signal of a return to a more confrontational stance with Russia. Second, the Russia-China partnership is hardening into a really powerful axis that's openly challenging the West. And third, you're seeing the rise of what's called multi-alignment, where powerful countries like India are refusing to get drawn into this new Cold War and they're charting their own path instead.
These aren't just abstract trends, they're truly reshaping the world we live in. And this quote from India's Prime Minister, it just perfectly captures that new way of thinking. It's a rejection of the old binary choices of the past. This whole multi-alignment thing just means that nations are putting their own economic and security interest first, instead of pledging allegiance to one bloc. For a growing chunk of the world, the priority isn't about choosing between Washington or Moscow anymore. It's about finding a path to stability and prosperity in a really turbulent time. So as we look at this volatile new landscape, the question is no longer as simple as, who's going to win this conflict? The real question is much deeper than that. After years of war, economic shock, and this massive geopolitical realignment, what kind of world is going to be left for all of us when the fighting finally stops?
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to Mirror Now.